"You're not our son. You're our financier." Dad laughed after I sent $35,000 for their expenses. I snapped. "Then pay for your own damn life." I canceled Sophia's phone plan, took their Mercedes, and demanded $95,000 back. I'm not their ATM anymore. 28M, never thought I'd be writing this. But here I am at 2 a.m., staring at my laptop screen after the most explosive family confrontation of my life. My hands are still shaking from rage, and I need to get this out before I lose my mind completely. For the past 3 years, I've been my family's personal ATM. It started innocently enough after I landed my software engineering job at a tech startup that went public. Suddenly, I was making more money than I ever imagined, and my parents seemed so proud. Dad would brag to his friends about his successful son, and Mom would tear up talking about how I'd made it. The requests began small. A few hundred here and there for car repairs, medical bills, my sister's college expenses. I was happy to help. These were the people who raised me, who sacrificed for my education. When Dad's construction business hit a rough patch during the pandemic, I stepped up without hesitation. When Mom needed dental work, I covered it. When my sister Sophia needed a new laptop for school, I bought her the best one available. But somewhere along the way, helping became expected. The grateful thank yous turned into casual assumptions. The emergency requests became monthly allowances. I found myself automatically transferring $3,000 every month to cover their mortgage, utilities, groceries, and whatever else they needed. Sophia's phone plan, car insurance, credit card payments, all on my dime. Last month, Dad called with another emergency. Their HVAC system had died, and they needed $35,000 immediately for a complete replacement. I didn't even hesitate. I transferred the money that same day, depleting a significant chunk of my savings account. I figured it was an investment in their comfort and my peace of mind. That's when everything went to hell. 2 days ago, I decided to surprise them with a visit. I'd been working crazy hours on a new project and hadn't seen them in weeks. I used my key to let myself in, expecting to find them relaxing in their newly climate-controlled home. Instead, I walked into what looked like a party planning session. Mom was on her laptop browsing vacation packages to Europe, while Dad was on the phone with someone discussing boat financing options. Sophia was sprawled on the couch, showing off a brand new designer handbag to her friend over video chat. The house felt perfectly comfortable. Not too hot, not too cold. Exactly what you'd expect from a functioning HVAC system. I asked Dad about the new system, and he laughed. Actually laughed, before telling me they'd gotten a much cheaper repair instead. The old system was working fine with a $400 fix. He seemed genuinely amused by my confusion, like I was missing some obvious joke. That's when he said it. The words that are burned into my brain forever. He told me I wasn't their son in these moments. I was their financier. He said it with this casual chuckle, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Mom nodded along, adding that I should be grateful they were teaching me about family responsibility. Sophia didn't even look up from her phone. I stood there, speechless, as the full weight of their words hit me. 3 years of sacrifice, of putting their needs before my own financial goals, of working overtime to ensure they were comfortable. And this is how they saw me. Not as their son, but as their personal bank account. I asked them directly, did they see me as family or as a source of income? Dad's response was immediate and brutal. He said both, obviously, and that I was being dramatic about the whole thing. He reminded me that family takes care of family, and since I was the one with money, it was my responsibility to provide for them. Mom chimed in, saying they'd raised me and fed me for 18 years, so this was just me returning the favor. Something inside me snapped. I told them that if I was just their financier, then they could start paying for their own damn life. The words came out cold and clear, and for the first time in years, I felt completely in control. The room went silent. Dad's smug expression faltered, and Mom actually looked shocked. Sophia finally looked up from her phone, sensing the shift in atmosphere. I pulled out my phone and canceled Sophia's plan right there in front of them. The satisfaction of watching her face change from confusion to panic was immediate. I told her she had 30 minutes to find her own service before her phone went dead. Then I walked outside and got in their Mercedes, the one I'd been making payments on for 2 years. Dad followed me, demanding to know what I thought I was doing. I told him I was repossessing my property. If they wanted a car, they could finance their own. But I wasn't done. I calculated everything in my head. 3 years of monthly transfers, emergency payments, insurance premiums, car payments, phone bills, credit card payments I'd covered. The number was staggering, $95,000. Nearly $100,000 I'd given them out of love and family obligation. I told them they had 30 days to pay me back. Every penny. Mom started crying, asking how I could do this to my own family. Dad called me ungrateful and selfish, saying I was abandoning the people who made me who I am. Sophia accused me of ruining her life over money. I reminded them that they just finished telling me I wasn't their son, I was their financier. Well, this financier was calling in his debts. I drove away in their Mercedes, leaving them standing in their driveway, and I haven't spoken to them since. Update 1. It's been a week since the confrontation, and my phone hasn't stopped buzzing. Extended family members have been calling non-stop, all with the same message. I'm being cruel and unreasonable. Apparently, my parents have been telling everyone that I've abandoned them over a misunderstanding. My aunt called yesterday, lecturing me about family values and how disappointed my grandparents would be. She said my parents were just joking around and that I took everything too seriously. When I told her the exact words Dad used, she went quiet for a moment before saying that maybe they didn't express themselves well, but their hearts were in the right place. I asked her if she'd be willing to take over their monthly expenses since she felt so strongly about family obligation. She quickly changed the subject. My cousin reached out too, saying Sophia had been crying for days because she couldn't afford a new phone plan. Apparently, she'd been telling everyone I cut off her phone for no reason. When I explained the full situation, my cousin admitted she didn't know about the $95,000 or the financier comment. The most infuriating part is how they're spinning this narrative. According to their version, I'm a successful son who suddenly decided to cut off his struggling family over a harmless joke. They're conveniently leaving out the part where they admitted to seeing me as a walking ATM rather than their child. I've been doing some digging into their finances, and what I found made my blood boil. Dad's construction business isn't struggling. It's actually doing quite well. I found his business social media page showing recent projects, new equipment, and even a post about expanding operations. Mama's been working part-time at a boutique, something she never mentioned when asking for money. They don't need my financial support. They never did. They just got comfortable with my money and decided it was easier than budgeting their own income. Update 2. 2 weeks in, and the pressure campaign has intensified. My parents showed up at my apartment yesterday, and the conversation was enlightening in the worst possible way. Dad immediately started with the guilt trip, talking about how hurt they were by my sudden change in personality. He said they'd been worried about me, wondering if I was having some kind of mental health crisis. Mom kept dabbing at her eyes with tissues, saying she didn't understand how her loving son had become so cold. I let them talk for a while, then asked a simple question. Did they bring the $95,000? The mask slipped instantly. Dad's concerned father act disappeared, replaced by anger. He told me I was being ridiculous, that no one keeps track of money given to family like that. He said I was acting like a loan shark, not a son. I pulled out my laptop and showed them the spreadsheet I'd created. Every transaction, every transfer, every payment I'd made on their behalf over the past 3 years. The dates, amounts, and purposes were all documented because I'm meticulous about my finances. Mom's reaction was telling. Instead of acknowledging the staggering amount, she got defensive. She said I was making them feel like criminals for accepting help from their successful son. She asked if I expected them to live in poverty while I had more money than I knew what to do with. That's when I realized something crucial. They genuinely believe they're entitled to my money. In their minds, my success automatically makes me responsible for their comfort. They don't see it as taking advantage. They see it as natural family hierarchy. I told them they had 2 weeks left to come up with the money. Dad laughed and said I'd never actually take them to court over this. He said I was bluffing, trying to scare them into apologizing for a joke I took too seriously. I informed them that I'd already consulted with a lawyer. While most of the money might be considered gifts, the car payments and phone bills were clearly documented as loans in my banking records. I had grounds for legal action on at least $30,000. The laughter stopped. Sophia texted me later that night, begging me to reconsider. She said she understood I was hurt, but that I was destroying the family over pride. She promised they'd all apologize and treat me better if I just went back to normal. I asked her what normal meant to her. She said things could go back to how they were before, but maybe with more appreciation shown for my help. I told her that normal was the problem. Normal meant being seen as a bank account instead of a brother. Normal meant my worth being measured by my willingness to pay for their lifestyle. She hasn't responded since. Update 3. 3 weeks have passed, and I'm writing this final update from my new apartment. Yes, I moved. After my parents started showing up unannounced and extended family members began staging intervention visits, I decided I needed space to think clearly. The breaking point came when I discovered they'd been using my address for credit applications. Apparently, having a successful son at a good address helped their approval odds. I found out when a credit card company called to verify my income for their application. That was it. I realized they weren't just taking my money. They were using my identity and reputation to access even more credit. The entitlement ran deeper than I'd imagined. I hired a lawyer and sent them a formal demand letter. The response was swift and ugly. Dad called, screaming about how I was trying to destroy my own family over money. He said I'd become everything he'd raised me not to be: greedy, selfish, and heartless. I reminded him that he was the one who called me their financier, not their son. I told him I was simply accepting the role he'd assigned me and conducting business accordingly. Mom tried a different approach. She called crying, saying she was sorry for Dad's poor choice of words, but that I was taking things too far. She begged me to think about family unity and forgiveness. When I asked if she was prepared to pay back the money, she said they didn't have it and couldn't possibly raise that amount. I asked her how they'd planned to pay for their lifestyle once I stopped funding it. The silence was deafening. Here's what I've learned through this process. They never saw my financial support as temporary help during hard times. They saw it as a permanent arrangement. In their minds, my success created an obligation to support them indefinitely. They'd built their entire lifestyle around my income, never considering that I might want to use my money for my own goals. The lawyer managed to recover $18,000, the documented car payments, and some clearly defined loans. The rest was legally considered gifts, but I don't care about the money anymore. I care about the principle. I've gone no contact with all of them. My phone number is changed, my address is private, and I've blocked them on all social media. Some extended family members still reach out occasionally, but I've made it clear that anyone who wants to discuss my family obligations can fund my parents themselves. The strangest part is how free I feel. For 3 years, I was stressed about their next emergency, their next need, their next crisis. I was working overtime not for my own goals, but to maintain their lifestyle. Now, for the first time since my career took off, I'm actually enjoying my success. I've started investing in my own future instead of funding their present. I'm looking at buying my own house, planning actual vacations, and building the life I want instead of the life they expected me to provide for them. Do I miss them? Sometimes. But I miss the family I thought I had, not the family they revealed themselves to be. I miss the parents who were proud of my success, not the ones who saw it as their retirement plan. I miss the sister who looked up to me, not the one who saw me as her personal sponsor. Some people have called me heartless for cutting off my family over money. But this was never about money. This was about respect, boundaries, and being seen as a person rather than a resource. I'm not their ATM anymore. I'm not their financier. I'm not their backup plan or their safety net. I'm just me, finally living my own life with my own money, and it feels incredible. To anyone reading this who might be in a similar situation, your success doesn't make you responsible for everyone else's comfort. Your love for family doesn't obligate you to fund their lifestyle. And if they can't see your worth beyond your wallet, maybe it's time to find people who can. The Mercedes is parked in my new garage, and every time I see it, I'm reminded that I chose myself for once. Best decision I ever made.